The homeowners association told their contractor to ignore me, and 3 days later one of their cement trucks sank halfway into the mountain road that runs through my land. After that, suddenly everybody wanted to talk. Funny how fast people discover respect when 40,000 pounds of bad judgment drops into a hillside. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 59, retired civil engineer, Army Corps for 23 years. I built temporary roads and bridges in places where one bad call could bury a convoy, Afghanistan, northern Iraq, parts of Eastern Europe, where the ground looked solid right up until it swallowed steel. Spin that long around dirt, gravel, drainage, and heavy vehicles, and you develop an instinct for land. You can tell when a hillside is lying. After I retired, I wanted quiet. So in 2020, I bought 50 acres outside Red Hollow, Colorado. The first thing I built was an access road because mountain land without a road is basically scenery with taxes. It ran about 1.25 miles from the county highway up through my property, hugging the ridge before leveling near the meadow where I put my cabin. Nothing fancy, compacted base gravel surface, drainage ditch, careful grading, good enough for pickups, small equipment, light utility trucks. But I knew exactly what it could handle and what it couldn't. The soil out there is decomposed granite mixed with clay. In dry weather, it feels stable. Under repeated heavy loads, it turns treacherous. The outer edge starts to shift, the base powders underneath, and gravity starts collecting its debt. I rated that road at about 6,000 pounds max. A big pickup, maybe a small delivery truck. Not a loaded cement mixer. For the first 2 years, life was peaceful. Then a developer bought the slope across the valley and announced a luxury subdivision called Ridgerest. I didn't think much of it until one afternoon a white SUV came bouncing up my road like it already belonged to somebody else. Out stepped Victor Hale, HOA president, sunglasses, loafers, polished smile. He told me their engineers had noticed my road connected almost perfectly to the lower entrance of their construction site. Using it, he said, would save their contractors about 30 minutes each trip. There it was. I asked what kind of traffic he meant. He gave me that vague little wave people use when they're trying to hide the expensive part. Just standard deliveries, materials, nothing too serious. I looked him dead in the eye. Victor, if you start sending cement trucks or loaded flatbeds up that road, it will fail. Not might, will. I explained the grade, the gravel depth, the soil composition, the load rating, the way decomposed granite behaves. I told him what upgrades it would take to make it viable: widening, reinforcement, drainage improvements, stabilization, probably $60,000 to $70,000. His eyebrows jumped. That much? That's what mountain roads cost when you want them to stay roads. He smiled and said, maybe we can work something out. A week later, the first cement truck showed up. It was just after 7 in the morning. I heard that low diesel rumble through the trees, looked up, and there it was. White drum turning slow tires, grinding into my gravel. I flagged the driver down. He said he was headed to the Ridgerest site for a foundation pour. I told him he was on private property. He blinked and said the HOA told them the owner was fine with it. I told him the road wasn't rated for his truck, and if he kept going, there was a real chance he'd sink the rear axle into the outside shoulder. You serious? He asked. Dead serious. To his credit, he backed all the way down. I figured that would embarrass them enough to end it. It didn't. 2 days later, another truck came. Then lumber. Then steel. Every driver said the same thing. They told us to use this road. They said it was cleared. They said you approved it. After the 4th incident, I drove down to the Ridgerest site and found Victor outside a trailer with 2 contractors. Why are your trucks using my road? I asked. He leaned back like this was all perfectly reasonable. We assumed you were still open to the idea. I told you it couldn't handle heavy loads. Our engineers think it'll be fine. That got my full attention. Your engineers inspected my road. He hesitated. From the information you provided. So they guessed. Victor crossed his arms and told me I was being overly cautious. I've heard that phrase before, usually right before something expensive breaks. So I tried one last time. Victor, I said I built roads in war zones for over 20 years. I am telling you exactly what's going to happen. He said we'll keep an eye on it. That phrase right there, that's executive language for we are absolutely going to do the stupid thing. That night I documented everything. Warning letter, soil notes, load analysis, certified mail to the HOA board and the development company. No response. Meanwhile, the road started showing early failure signs, shallow ruts near the outer edge, hairline cracking where the slope fell toward the trees. So I installed steel barrier gates at both entrances, one near the highway and one near my cabin, each locked between concrete bollards. Then I sent Victor a final email. Road is closed to all construction traffic. Any attempt to bypass the barriers will be considered trespassing. His reply came back fast. Daniel, you're overreacting. Our contractor has been instructed to continue operations as planned. I read it twice, then laughed. Not because it was funny, because the ending had just become inevitable. Gravity plus arrogance equals disaster. Simple equation. 3 days later, my neighbor Nate called. Dan, one of those idiots, just drove a cement truck through the trees to get around your gate. I grabbed my jacket and headed down. By the time I reached the lower bend, the truck had made it maybe 400 feet up the grade. That was enough. The rear axle had sunk about 8 inches into the outside edge of the road where the hillside sloped away. Not some dramatic movie landslide, just a hard, ugly collapse under the rear tires. But with a fully loaded cement truck, 8 inches might as well be 8 feet. The driver was outside, hands on hips, staring at the truck like a man trying to understand the exact moment a bad idea becomes an expensive one. You the owner, he asked. Yeah. He rubbed the back of his neck. Dispatcher said the HOA cleared it with you. That's what they told the last guy too. I felt sorry for him, honestly. He wasn't the one making decisions, just the one stuck in the consequences. So I told him not to touch the truck and to call for a proper recovery rig. It took nearly 8 hours. 2 wreckers, winches, anchored uphill half the day, gone, while the truck sat there like a monument to stubbornness. Around noon, Victor showed up in that same white SUV. He got out, looked at the truck, looked at me, and said, "What happened?" I raised an eyebrow. The road failed. That's impossible. I pointed at the rear axle. Gravity disagrees. He walked around the truck, jaw tight, then stepped closer and lowered his voice. You're interfering with a major construction project. No, I said I'm protecting my property. You're costing us time and money. I warned you. Then he made the mistake that really changed the game. He threatened legal action. I told him I had his email instructing the contractor to ignore me, and I had copies with my attorney. That took some color out of his face, but the real twist came about an hour later when County Inspector Laura McKenna arrived. Laura was one of those small-town officials people underestimate right up until she starts asking the one question they can't answer. She walked the damaged section with me crouched down, let the loose granite run through her fingers, then looked at Victor. What's the rated load for this road? He started talking about temporary access. She cut him off. That wasn't my question. I answered for him. 6,000 pounds. She nodded toward the truck. And that mixer, about 40,000 loaded. She wrote on her clipboard, stood up and said, all construction vehicles are prohibited from using this road effective immediately. County order. Victor opened his mouth. She shut it with a look. And just like that, Ridgerest lost its shortcut. For the next 11 weeks, every truck hauling material to that site had to drive the 90-minute loop around the mountain. Fuel costs exploded. Schedules slipped. Then the real hit landed their builder's delay clause, $340,000. A month later, I got notice the HOA planned to sue me for tortious interference, basically claiming I sabotaged their project. My attorney nearly laughed. In court, the judge flipped through my warning letters, the receipts, the soil report, Victor's email telling contractors to ignore me, then dismissed the case in about 15 minutes. That should have been the end of it. But money teaches lessons pride can't. 2 weeks later, Victor came back to my cabin. No sunglasses, no polished grin, no swagger. Just a tired man standing on my porch. What would it take, he asked. I'd already done the math. Proper upgrades, I said. Reinforced base drainage, wider shoulder stabilization. 3-year access agreement, $3,500 a month. Heavy vehicles over 10,000 pounds pay $200 per crossing. Late payment by 72 hours, gate locks automatically. He stared out at the valley for a long minute, doing the calculation he should have done the first day. Then he held out his hand. Deal. The development company spent $75,000 rebuilding my road to proper mountain spec. And for the next 3 years, every truck crossing my land paid to do it. Between the monthly access fee and the heavy load tolls, that little road ended up bringing in about $126,000. Not bad for a shortcut they thought they were entitled to. These days, I still sit on the porch with my coffee and watch the mixer trucks roll by. They move slower now. Drivers stop at the gate, punch in the code, and ease up the hill like they're crossing a bridge made of glass. Funny how quickly people start respecting load limits once they've watched a cement truck sink into a mountain. And the lesson that stuck with me wasn't really about engineering. It was about the kind of people who hear expertise as an inconvenience. Some folks don't want the truth, they want permission. They'll ignore the warning, mock the boundary, push past the fence, then act shocked when consequences show up and hand them the bill. That's the bitter part. Arrogance almost never pays a loan. It drags workers' time, money, and everybody else's patience down with it. Still, karma got there in the end. So let me ask you this. When somebody with money, status, or a title decides the laws of common sense don't apply to them, where's the line between self-defense and letting them learn the hard way? And have you ever warned someone exactly what was going to happen, only for them to ignore you and blame you after the whole thing blew up? Tell me where you stand. And if you've lived through something like that, drop your story too. I can also make this even stronger in one of these directions: darker, funnier, more cinematic, or more viral comment bait at the ending.